Spoilers for up to chapter 213 of Undead Unluck. Come back later when you've caught up. So, during my chapter breakdown for Undead Unluck chapter 213 here on YouTube, I asked this question when talking about what Soul was up to that has both us as the viewers and Fuko stumped. How many of the previous recruitment arcs have had Luna, like the moon, in the background? And while editing, I decided to satisfy my curiosity and look through all the 101st recruitment chapters so far that we've gotten through the series and see what I could find. And in doing so, I had a thought come to my mind, and after finding an arguable pattern that can fit said thought, I've made a theory as to what it is that, not Fuko specifically, but what us as the readers have been overlooking during this 101st recruitment that could point out a potential hint towards what it is to come after we get our final member during this untouchable arc. So, on to my original question. How many instances can we see Luna in the background during the 101st recruitment saga? When I was looking through this, I decided to only count the pages and panels that take place during the 101st loop, so no flashbacks or memories to the prior loop, and the answer I came to was 45 instances, the first time being chapter 136 and the most recent one being 212, with 136 and 194 being tied for the most. Now, that probably leaves you wondering, what was the pattern I saw that has led to my theory? Well, that's very simply, who does the panel belong to when Luna appears on it, as the roster of characters who have shared an on-page panel with her is quite small. Before we start, let me clarify on the process I did on deciding who the panel belongs to, as there are plenty of instances where multiple characters are on screen, or some instances with no characters on screen at all. Now, there are some instances where I do say multiple characters share the page as they have equal footing. However, there are instances where there'll only be one character talking, or this character charging up for attack or taking lead in the page, in which those instances I'll give the panel to that character specifically. Now we have that out of the way, let's get the Umas out of the way first, as while they do have some supporting for the theory, they aren't the focus here. First up, we have Autumn and Uma Gold with only one panel each. And then we have this panel here, which, while yes, Andy is the one on the page, I am counting this as Soul's panel, as Soul is the one doing the monologue, doing all the talking, and doing the big reveal as to where Andy has been all this time. Next up, we have Uma Heat with only 2 instances. And finally, Uma Beast with a grand total of 11 instances. But now we get on to the more interesting selection of characters who share on-screen appearances with Luna, the Negators. Because out of the 18 Negators currently recruited, sorry Kenji, only 7 have actually shared an on-screen appearance with Luna, and all of them, apart from a single character, sharing more than 1 instance. First up, we have Julia and Chikara, who both only have 2 instances. Julia having one with her talking to her mate, and then the other time talking and her comforting Fuko. And Chikara's both being the same instances of when him and Fuko are talking about his unmove activating, with the second time being a flashback to that instance. Then we have Billy with 3 instances, one being one that he shares with Tell as a conversation, and the other 2 being when him and Fuko are fighting on top of Disc. After that, we have Feng, Top, and Teller all at 4, Teller having 3 during his negation awakening, and the aforementioned one where he's conversing with Billy. Then we have Top with all of this being during his fight with Uma Beast, and then we have Feng, the first 2 being when he's fell from the heavens and crushed Uma Heat to fight Fuko for the very first time, and then his other 2 instances being during the final fight during the Tenrai site against Shen. With the first one, I'm counting as Feng's, because while the narration box is talking about untruth, the reason that is being discussed here is in context of Feng and why it was able to affect him. And then the second one being Feng accepting Shen as his son. Now for the character who I mentioned that only had 1 appearance with Luna, that being Kururu, the crutch of this theory. See, with Kururu's recruitment arc, she wasn't the proactive character in making what happened in the arc fully happen. That was Soul, as he gave her a big power up and even seemingly took the reins when she fired that Unchased Blast at Reuter. And that leads with the question, how far can Soul take it with controlling a Negator's soul? And how out of the question is to say that these 7 Negates could potentially get forcibly taken control of and made to fight the other ones. The reason I think the panels with Luna in the background are the potential indicator for this is because while normally the moon is just some skybox decoration to make the scene look pretty, here in Undead Unluck, that whore is a full-ass character.
Fuck you, bitch!
Who isn't just any character, but a main antagonist of the series, whose goals and meanings for their actions are ones we still don't fully understand. Then we have Sol, who we've seen being able to move somewhat freely, being able to leave the Master Room and go over to see Luna on the moon, despite Andy actively locking the Master Rules down in the sun, as well as the aforementioned ability to be able to strengthen negators and also somewhat overtake their free will and control them. Now the question remains, how will this plotline be introduced? I want to present a possible answer that not only would introduce this plotline, but also introduce another one that's already been set up. Ruin. With how things are going in this loop and Andy being trapped on the sun, there really isn't any reason to reintroduce Ruin as a regulator again, as I don't really see anyone going around and just slaughtering a bunch of Umas needlessly and throwing this game out for like Andy did in the 100th loop. However, back during chapter 97, Ruin says, "I'm sure that being this sick and in this much pain holds some meaning. The master rules imposed by God hold no errors after all. Let us create a place. Join us, those who have surpassed death." And not only can you see in the English translation with the boldened letters, but also in the Japanese versions with the Ruby text that Tasuku uses for Negator and Uma names, showing that Ruin seemingly knew about the Master Rules as he refers directly to Sick, the first Master Rule that we had met. So it could be very easy for Tasuku to use Ruin's obsession with God and wanting to welcome the Master Rules onto the world as a new angle for Ruin's character in this loop, by having him not be a regulator, but by having him work directly for Sol and being the leader of this team of Sol-controlled negators, and even potentially ending off with the Union possibly recruiting Ruin, as was hinted towards all the way back in chapter 133. Now, as I'm sure most of you noticed, I noted down that there were 7 characters who shared panels with Luna in the background, but I've only mentioned 6 so far. Well, the reason being is the 7th and most prevalent character with 14 occasions is Fuko Azumo. Now, some of these times you can give to other characters if you want to have panels be strictly for one character, such as Billy, Chikara, and Julia. But a lot of these instances cannot be written off as anyone's other than Fuko's, because she is the sole character on the screen, or the sole character taking charge of the screen. But the big problem here is, surely Tasuku wouldn't have Fuko be mind controlled and forced to fight a Union, right?